Maing buntag Negros Oriental, good morning Philippines, and welcome to another edition of FLEXIED or Flexible Learning Experience in Education, brought to you by the Department of Education Division of Negros Oriental. I am Leah, your host for this morning. Now, FLEXIED is a learning modality that is fair and equal to all because here at DepEd, education never stops. Yesterday, we had the opportunity to meet Harvard University's heroes of 2019, attorney Mayrish Kadapan Antonio, as she talked about leadership in turbulent times and its implications on education. Now, in relation to that, today we will be discussing how to build resiliency so we can bounce back better and stronger. Our guest speaker for this morning is truly admirable, and it's an honor for me to introduce to you our speaker for the day. Now, our speaker earned her Bachelor of Arts in Psychology at the University of St. LaSalle, Bacolod. She has a Master's in Disaster Resilience and Sustainable Development from the University of Newcastle in Australia through the Australia Awards Scholarship. She is a development and humanitarian worker who worked in the United Nations and Red Cross for disaster response and rehabilitation programs during the humanitarian emergencies in the country from 2011 to 2015. Her focus is on humanitarian coordination, information management, mainstreaming disaster risk reduction, and mental health and psychosocial support. In 2015 and 2019, she was appointed by the Japan Cabinet Ministry on the discussion to be the discussion facilitator on the Ship for Southeast Asian Youth Program, or SEA, where she facilitated the discussion topic environment to the youth leaders in the region as they traveled through Japan and ASEAN. She now works as a freelance consultant on sustainability, resiliency, disaster risk reduction, mental health, research, and facilitation. Dear teachers, allow me to introduce to you our speaker for this morning, Ms. Maria Lourdes Eudela, or Ms. Malu. Good morning, Ms. Malu.
Good morning, Leah. How are you?
I'm doing good po. How are you po?
All is well from my end. Yes.
I'd like to ask po where you are currently.
So I'm currently in Bago City, actually just very near you guys, in Negros Oriental.
Yes.
Yeah.
And how is Bago doing po, especially now with this pandemic? As what Attorney Mayrish Kadapan Antonio said, turbulent times. How is Bago doing?
I wouldn't say it's smooth sailing. Bago City, like any other LGUs in the country, is trying their best to actually manage the demands of this kind of crisis. Nothing of its kind in recent years, diba?
Yes, really unprecedented po.
That's true. Sometimes I would even say that unprecedented is an understatement because
yes,
we are kind of punched from all sides given this
yes.
crisis.
Yeah, we are placed in a global standstill po, something that hasn't happened for like 100 years.
True. I could only agree on that. So Bago is trying its best to handle the cases that we have currently, and I'm just happy and proud of what they've done so far and how they have helped in this whole process of trying to hurdle the pandemic.
On a personal level po, how are you doing po? How is your family handling this crisis po?
Okay, thank you for asking. I think that is a very important question, like even just the mere kumustahan and hi hellos, they mean a lot. I wouldn't say na everything's okay. There were days na I'm happy to be home, which is not the typical like schedule that I have because I'm highly mobile given my work. But I'm also happy that I'm home at this time and be with my mom and my grandmother na
Mm-hmm.
both are senior citizens, and I do errands for them. So you feel the kumbaga feeling standstill of the situation, but at the same time
Mm-hmm.
you're happy that at this crucial time you are in your family and be the support system of sorts. So I
Mm-hmm.
feel blessed na din, generally speaking.
Kaya nga po, so appropriate for the times, yung topic niyo po for today, which is resiliency and how to bounce back better and stronger. So, Miss Malu, please take it away.
Thank you, Leah. So, good morning po sa lahat ng tagapanood natin. This morning we will be talking, or whatever time you're watching this, we'll be talking about resiliency. And resiliency siguro is something that you've heard in your communities, or like a topic that you came across, no? Resiliency or building resilient communities. And I chose this because this is a very timely topic. And apart from that, this is actually the reason why I'm going to the communities and trying to build people's capacities and lessen their vulnerabilities or address their vulnerabilities so that they'd be able to build back better or bounce back better and stronger. Narinig nyo na din ata yun yung build back better. Ano? So, himay-himayin natin, because when we talk about resiliency, ang daming facets nun. And then, ang kanyang definition is nakadepende doon sa from what lens are we looking into it. Nasa disaster risk reduction management na lente ba? Or nasa mental health and psychosocial support? Or sa education? Or sa sustainable development? So, according to UNISDR, or the United Nations International for disaster reduction. Ang resiliency is the ability to resist, absorb, accommodate, adapt to, transform, and recover from the effects of hazard in a timely and efficient manner. So this includes the preservation and restoration of essential basic structures and functions through risk management. Or bakit tayo may mga DRR, ano? Because that is to prepare us to shocks and stressors or the hazards that we face. I chose this image because it represents kind of fully well what resiliency is all about. Kung titingnan mo the ground, there's a drought in there. There's apparently nagka-crack na siya because there's no water, but it didn't stop the flower from blooming. So, kung titingnan mo, there's still life despite the limitations of the environment. And that is the essence of resiliency, that despite the challenges that we face, we get to still bloom and maximize the potential and the capacity that we have. So, pag pinag-uusapan natin yung hazards, ito yung sinasabi nating mga factors that put us possibly into danger, that may be like cause of like lives, properties. Pag iniisip natin, hazards ba, disasters ka agad? Not necessarily. Hazards, meron tayong human-induced hazards. I mean, the two main types of hazards, human-induced na gawa ng tao, and meron ding natural causes or natural hazards. These are typhoons. We could not stop them. It happens. Earthquakes. Yung human-induced, sabihin siguro natin more on conflict, ano. And these things affect our daily lives, or it could prompt us to stopping our normal way of living. So COVID, hindi na siya hazard. A pandemic is a disaster. Kung iisipin natin, hindi na tayo normal ngayon. So the mere fact that something is not normal anymore and we've adjusted, that's already disaster. But the fact that we are able to adjust, that shows our level of resiliency. So another set of definitions ng resiliency, or what does it mean to be resilient. I chose this image because when we talk about resiliency, it's also talking about bouncing back. So it's like a ball. Or sometimes it's bamboo, that what's there, what they connect it with. Bamboo kasi it's very flexible. na despite the strong winds or other variables in the environment, it just sways. Nagsisway lang siya, and it stands when the storm is already over or kung tapos na yung malakas na hangin. So now, the ball, going back to the ball, pag pag iniisip natin, what's the capacity of that ball? So the air that you put inside the ball, yun yung kapasidad niya. And then it bounce back higher if there's like a lot of air in it, right? Pero kung konti lang yung hangin, we would notice that it doesn't bounce the way it bounces pag madaming hangin. It's like us as well. If an individual or community has the capacity to hurdle its impacts dahil sa mga disasters na nangyari and madali silang nag-bounce back, you get to say, oh, that community or that individual is resilient. That's the definition of mayunga. So for Montella and Tonelli, it means like the system's ability to function and evolve despite facing massive shocks and stresses. Masasabi ko yung DepEd dyan sa Negros Oriental is very resilient. Kasi kung iisipin mo, the innovation that you have launched through FLEXIED is brought about by your ingenuity, your desire to actually keep that learning, inclusive and responsive learning in times of crisis. You could have chosen to stop. Kung isipin natin, kung wala kayong kapasidad, if you don't have the human resource and other factors to pull this FLEXIED as a program, then wala lang. It would be just probably an idle time for you. But you have that capacity through the human resource that you have, who were able to do this innovation. Plus, you have probably the resources, sabihin nating money. These are all add up as your capacity, and thus you're able to bounce back. Na hindi kayo nag-stop lang doon. So I hope you get that idea of resiliency, yung capacity to bounce back and hurdle the challenges that you get to face. Later, we have examples on how do we actually apply it as individuals and how do we actually relate it to learning, and how do we share it with our students for them to also be resilient. May mga tanong kasi na, is resiliency something learned or acquired? It could be both, actually. It could be through nurture in psychology, nurture and nature. So it could be innate in us, or it could also be something which is being taught in us. Taught to us. So this image in front of you right now are different like aspects of resiliency. Pag sinasabing resilience, ano yun? So we have external and internal factors. Yung internal, basically, it focuses on us, like our inner strengths. So, ikaw ba, matatag ka as a person? Are you strong enough? Are you reflective enough? Positive ka ba yung disposition mo? Are you smart enough to think about solutions? Kung titingnan naman natin yung external factors, we get to ask, do we have enough support system? Are our relationships with other people not necessarily romantic, but okay, it counts. Our relationship with our colleagues or friends or clubmates or whatever you have outside your family, is it good ba? So, because these are all factors, I give you an example. If you are going through something, say for example, a death, no? A death of someone, you have to, like, it's not an easy thing to go through. You go through grief. Sabihin na natin na strong ka. Strong ka, so you fairly bounce back better compared to the ones who are emotionally weak. But the emotionally weak has a support system through friends and relatives who check on her or him. So nagiging parang patas na kung kunyari ikaw strong ka lang but you don't have your family with you because malayo ka sa kanila. So yun yung tinitingnan natin na ano yung mga factors that make us strong in situations where we are emotionally down, we are exhausted physically or mentally drained. So ano yung mga factors na meron tayong mapanghuhugutan to be able to pull it off? Okay, so these factors are engagement, relationships, finding meaning in life, your achievements, vitality, positivity. Let me just take achievement as an example. Ano, it could be like a two-edged sword kung iisipin mo. Because even sa mga students niyo siguro, no, or even kayo, there are moments where we ask ourselves, are we worthy enough? Kaya ko ba to? Hindi ko ba to kaya? And we get to look back, what have I achieved in the past na pwede kong panghugutan? Sometimes we say, oh, first honor na ako noon, tapos ngayon third na. So that's why it makes me more sad kasi nagawa kong before, bakit hindi ko magawa ngayon? So some kids feel that. But also, kung you look at it in a different perspective, nag-first honor ako before, third honor ako ngayon, pwede pa ako maging first honor again because I've done it in the past. So it's about disposition. So sinabi kong two-edged sword siya because our achievements could actually be our source of inspiration, but it also could be a potential source of like dragging factor because we are so into it na now we don't live anymore in the present kasi we are so full of ourselves probably on that and we could hardly move on from that. So posible siyang maging ganon. And well, I want to touch on positivity as well. Na-mention nga ni Leah kanina na I'm one of my causes is on mental health. And in mental health, we acknowledge that we have different emotions. So meron tayong mga moments sa positive tayo, meron namang we feel down, we feel blue. What we say is there's no wrong emotions. If you feel it, that's right. That's the right feeling that you ought to feel at that moment. You don't deny yourself from feeling so many emotions. What's wrong in there is if we tend to deny what we are going through. So it drags us from being resilient if we continue to deny what we feel. Kasi the moment that you recognize what you're going through, the better you actually find solutions to addressing the issues that you're facing. So moving on, ano yung common components of resilience? So there are two actually. So the first one focuses on individual behaviors, attitudes, and competencies. So in psychology, we have like CBT, no? Like cognitive, behavioral, and affective. So sige, himay-himayin natin dito according to sa childtrends.org. So the physical health, which talks about our sleep, our wellness in terms of like physical, no? Yeah, eating well. Are you eating well? Are you exercise enough? Do you have like good health overall? Bakit ito important? Kasi ni-imagine mo, pag hindi good ang health mo and you're facing other problems, hindi ka makaka-move on ng maayos. At this point, the ones who are in the hospital, it may be double pressure for them or parang yung gino-go through nilang journey ngayon sa COVID ay kahit hindi pa nga COVID positive sila, sabihin natin ibang sakit nila. Like my mom is a diabetic and at this point sobrang hirap din sa kanya how to adjust in this situation of COVID. Ang daming restrictions given that she is already senior citizen, meron pa siyang diabetes. So hindi niya na mas magawa pa yung mga gusto niya pang gawin. Moving on, social and emotional competencies. Ito yung a sense of like control of our lives in terms of like our emotions, how positive our relationships with other people. Dito, mahirap siya. Kunyari, you were quarantined in your boarding house, and if you don't have like good friends, a circle of good friends, who are you going to call? Who are you going to chat? It's affecting your mental health kung iisipin mo na wala kang pwedeng pag-share nito. Cognitive competencies, this is our ability to be reflective in on like an intellectual level, no, pag we find insights in what we're going through, and also solving problems or issues. Merong gift din to, like all these things, nature and nurture din. Some people gumagaling sila in problem solving because they are troubleshooters in their work. So, dati hindi pa nila alam how to go about it, but eventually, kung mamimit mong the same kind of issues over and over, gumagaling ka. And kahit kayo, like mga teachers, pag iniisip natin, how was I able to manage a difficult learner back then? Dati hindi mo siguro alam, merong mga different personalities ang mga kids. And then, and parang customize yung approach mo, diba? Pero later on, parang some kids fit to certain molds, and sabi mo, bully type to. This is how I'm going to deal with them. Or this is like a child that needs affirmation, so I'll do like this. So, gumagaling tayo over time because of these experiences that we have. So yun under this component, it's important that we have good physical health, social and emotional competencies, and cognitive competencies. Hindi lang isang aspeto yon, they all come together. So we move on to another set, family, school, and community support. So it's important daw, according to childtrends.org, to have positive and supportive family. That is what I was saying earlier in the external factor of resiliency, yung networks mo. So the warmth, stability, cohesiveness, and positive parenting style, and high expectations. Yung high expectations, masasabi din natin na sometimes it's positive and sometimes it's negative. Pero we always like strike a balance, like in a mediocre life. Pag mediocre life kasi, parang sinasabi natin, okay, everything's like okay na lang. No motivation to actually move on and do better. Although in college, when I was studying psychology, they say that stressors and motivations are proof of life. Pag stress tayo, it only means that we're alive. Because if we're dead, we don't feel anything at all, right? So these are testaments na we're so alive if we are going through a lot of stress. And sometimes high expectations and the pressures around, they could be our sources of stress, but it doesn't necessarily mean they translate to distress, but they could be eustress, like a source of happy stress. So if you have like strong family support and relationships, magiging resilient ka, nagiging resilient tayo. And then presence of a caring adult outside family. And dito, na-highlight as like example, teachers, counselor, coach, or mentor. I remember that I must say this, and I'm not saying this because I wanted to sound cheesy, because I know most of our viewers are teachers, but I wouldn't think that I would be this person that I am right now without the teachers who risk their names on me, who really put all their efforts to mold me to become the person that I am. Like a lot of teachers opened opportunities for me, and pag nare-recall ko yon, naisip ko na, oh my gosh, this desire to do good, to excel, kung pag binabalikan ko, my teachers were my role models. So grabe talaga yung impact nung having the presence of a caring adult, especially the teachers that you deal with in school. And the lastly, belonging to groups or institutions, even amongst yourselves, right? Merong strength in finding a group outside work or outside the family, and these people could be sharing the same hobbies with you. Ang sinasabi nga sa isang research, I could remember that most of the retirees daw, yung longevity nila at lumalawig yung life nila compared to other retirees na if they are working in church or working in like group of seniors, or kung may mga anumang hobby na join na nila. So kung isipin natin, we draw strength from our networks and the people around because they lend ears for you, or mga like support. They could cry with you, laugh with you, and that means a lot, right? So now, how do we improve resilience? You might have already an idea of how to go about it. Kung ngayon ka lang naiisip na pwede ka pala full screen. So, get connected. Build strong positive relationships with loved ones and friends. Kasi, imagine this. If you have like relationships with other people, yung iba, hindi maganda, pinoproblema pa nila. Like, ultimo pagtulog na lang, iniisip pa nila yung mga kalaban nila or mga kaaway nila. Kaysa sa taong like you could sleep right away because you don't have like anything like grudges against other people. So it's very important to have like good relationships with others, continue to get connected with people. But I'm also a firm believer na quality over quantity. It's possible that you only 3 or 4 friends. These are reliable ones na could be your support, ano? So make every day meaningful. Do something that gives you a sense of accomplishment and purpose every day. I do not know whether the struggle for teachers because every day going to school, or maybe just now wala tayong physically going to school na masasabi, pero I think like amongst teachers, the sense of meaning is there through and through. And that's why I think it's a very noble profession, you know. So on this aspect, I just want to share that on our fridge, kasi malapit siya doon sa where I brushed my teeth, nakalagay doon, like, what do I want to happen with my life today? So, tinatanong ko na nandun yung reminder na yun, because that should be a daily question for us, para we'd be able to set goals with our lives, short term, long term, or on that daily basis lang. And I'll learn from experience. This is very important, and usually underrated siya, no, yung process na to. We have a lot of life lessons. In one conference that I attended, sinabi na you could never say that it's a lesson learned until you applied it. Because it's a lesson, you know, it's just a lesson that you've heard kung hindi mo in-apply yon. So it's very important that we learn from our experiences in the past and we get to apply it whenever there's an opportunity to do so. Remain hopeful. Yeah, and the greatest of them is love, but also hope. Kasi hope is what makes you like wake up. It's easy to be hopeless. Kanina nung nag-usap kami ni Leia sa kumustahan, I'm kind of tempted to say hopeless, but no, we are resilient people. We bounce back. We wake up for better days. Bumabangon tayo for better days, and like in that hope. And let me just also share with you a personal example. I think my mom and dad, meron kami, they have 5 kids and I'm one of them. And growing up, it was very, very tough. And ngayon na medyo settled na kaming lahat, looking back, parang isip ko, how did they manage to send us to school all together? And how did they also manage to go to school when there were days parang yung baon ko pang photocopy lang. So, but because of that hope that better days will come. And I must say na siguro what we are reaping right now, better days na to. So we remain hopeful because sometimes we lose sight of that brighter days because we're so engrossed in the darkness of probably what we're going through at present. And then take care of yourself. This sounds like a cliche. Ang parati natin to naririnig. Okay, amping, jud kanunay, or ingat ka lagi. But this could not be underestimated. We care for ourselves so that we'd be able to care for other people, especially for the kids that we tend to, and be proactive. So don't ignore your problems, is what I was saying. Acknowledge them. So acknowledge them so that you'd be able to come up with plans and actions in order to solve them. And then solving them takes time, ha? It's a process. It doesn't come in a snap. So I'm about to actually end my presentation in a bit, but I just want to share that these are tips to improve your resilience and your students' resilience. It's very important to hone them into like kids na social beings sila. We remind them. Right now, our challenge is merong daming gadgets. Even ako, hindi ako makapag-connect with my nephew and niece because they wanted to watch YouTube videos or play Minecraft or whatever than working with me or talking with me. Pero these are things that they could learn from you. We could have like exercises. We could introduce like resiliency. We could introduce activities in our lesson plans na pwedeng ma-build to. And I could share the materials with DepEd, Negros Oriental for this. Okay. So let me end it by a quote from Nelson Mandela. And he said, and this is something that narinig na din natin at nabasa na natin, but I just want to emphasize na this is a very important thing to surface when talking about resiliency. Sabi niya, do not judge me by my success. Judge me by how many times I fell and got back up again. Because yun yung resiliency is bouncing back. Yung parang province to na nagsasabi, don't judge us by how many bagyo na or mga unos na ano namin don't judge us by the number of bagyo na nag-struck sa amin. I remember Samar because Samar parang ganun eh. When you go to that area, they'd laugh at it and they would say they're the capital of the country in terms of mga bagyo. And over time, tinatawanan na lang nila. I know it's never easy, but this talks about their resiliency na kahit ilang bagyo doon, they still manage to bounce back and adapt to the situation. So I hope you too get to bounce back whatever you're going through, be it personal, professional level. I wish you well. And sana may natutunan kayo dito sa sharing natin about resiliency. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Miss Malu.
Yes, Leia, thank you.
I love it when you said po na resilience in a nutshell po is enjoying life and appreciating life despite limitations. That's one of the things that you said that really struck me. Also, I realized po na for us to bounce back stronger and better, it's not a one-man show. Yun po yung sinabi niyo po na it takes a whole village, physical health, social well-being, emotional competencies, cognitive competencies, the support of family, school, and community. So it's really inspiring to know that you should not be alone when you go through things like this. When you go through things like this, so thank you for sharing that to us. Kasi it's important for teachers to know that we need emotional support and community po. Are there things for like your final message before you'd like to some like a message that you'd like to leave the teachers before we before you go po?
Okay. Thank you, Leah, for feedbacking yung lessons that you picked up, no. Just in my work, parang sinasabi nila na yung resiliency daw is a two-pronged thing. Yung mga expats naming mga kasama, yung mga international colleagues ko, they'd say that Filipinos are very resilient. And merong mga researchers din na lumabas na this is a positive and a negative thing to be looked at as a resilient person, because sometimes we say na resilient na sila, kaya nila yan. So that sometimes deprive us from feeling what we ought to feel, no? Na parang kung minsan kasalanan na i-feel yung you feel down, you wanna cry because you've been told na resilient ka naman, ang dami mo nang na go through in the past. I just want to say that resiliency is not, it's a strength, but acknowledging your emotions and feeling weak is also something that would require strength. So being honest is also a strength. So kung iisipin mo, yung resiliency is acknowledging what you have at the moment and being honest about it, so that you'd be able to identify the strategies so that you'd be able to bounce back or build back better and stronger. Because the moment you deny the situation and the context where you are in, you'll never find any solutions. And what does it mean? You'll not be able to bounce back better or build better and stronger. So yun, I wish you all the best. Stay safe, wash your hands, and wear mask. Yes, all the best, everyone. Yes.
Thank you, Miss Malu.
Thanks.
To everyone who joined us, I hope that you got a lot of things from Miss Malu. I did. There are 3 things that Miss Malu said that I'd like to remind the audience today. First, stress is proof of life. So ayaw kahadlo kong stress. For manageable stress, happy stress. Yes. So kanang part nato sa atong trabaho nga natay mga bata, well, new normal, walay face-to-face nga klase, pero usahay magkalisod ta og bata kay bulyagon. That is proof of life. Enjoy and embrace it. Secondly, find meaning in what you do that will give you even more hope. And finally, and I love this, it is not a lesson learned if we haven't applied it. To everyone, thank you. To Miss Malu, we really learned so much. So salamat kaayo sa imong appeal sa atong programa karong buntaga. To everyone, thank you for joining us here at FLEXIED. And as what Miss Malu said, you are not alone. You will always have us here. This is Leah saying, have a wonderful morning and a good day to all of you.